And it's very interesting also if you look at how they found out that actually, because there's a good part in this story,
Mm-hmm.
and the good part is that food allergies can be prevented,
Ah.
and that's by giving allergens early and often,
Mm-hmm.
early actually at the age as of 4 months until, and then often on a weekly basis for a time frame of 6 months. So there is a
Okay.
good part because scientific studies has been shown that 80% of these food allergies actually can be prevented.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would like to mention is the relevance was actually because we were avoiding having those allergens into our babies' diets for
Yeah.
long decades and decades.
Ah.
So, like you were mentioning, this is kind of a loop which we kept on going and kept on going.
Welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. My name is Dirk Jan Upkes, and on this podcast, I give the women who work in tech the platform they need to inspire and empower each other. Join me on a journey into the world of entrepreneurship, funding, biases, and role models to discover the strategies for success in the tech industry. In other words, how women can disrupt tech. Are you ready to listen? Hey, welcome back to Women Disrupting Tech. Thank you for listening to episode 65. Did you know that 1 in every 4 babies develops a food allergy? And that by 2050, about half of the population will be allergic to some type of food? This will have a huge impacts on our healthcare system, not to mention the children and their parents, but it also means that by 2050, many of the foods that we now adopt to save our planet will be unavailable to half of our population. And this blocks efforts to make us and our planet healthier. There's also good news. The good news is that we can prevent this from happening by giving our babies the right nutrition. In this episode of Women Disrupting Tech, we'll explore how we can break the food allergy cycle. Jozien Boersma from Vini Mini is our guest as we learn how to prevent food allergies by giving our babies the proper allergens in the first year of their lives. Jozien and I will talk about how giving babies peanuts, cow milk, and nuts early on in their lives prevents them from being allergic to these foods later, how timing is important when educating parents about treating food allergies, and how food can help us scale from care to prevention. Plus, Jozien has a fascinating insight into how we can increase diversity in tech. So when you're ready to listen and learn how we can break the food allergy cycle with Vini Mini, please welcome to Women Disrupting Tech, Jozien Boersma. Hey Jozien, good to have you. A question I always ask at the start of the podcast is how you got into your current job or current position. And the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for the invite, though. Very happy and pleased to be here. Looking at my background, I have a corporate background within 15 years of experience within the marketing and sales departments. After
Mm-hmm.
doing the hospitality industry school and doing my master's at the VU, I actually always wanted to be a bit in the middle of all the commercial activities. And my impression was that corporates were actually the best in class to learn and to be at those days. But actually, after experience corporates for 15 years, I thought, okay, if I really want to make an impact and if I want to quit doing a lot of political stuff, I need to start my own business.
Mm-hmm.
But then yeah, should have like a fantastic idea. And having worked in the infant industry,
Mm-hmm.
so baby food nutrition, and having one of my best friends going through a challenge within food allergies,
Mm-hmm.
we actually founded each other and founded the company called Vini Mini.
Okay. How did you come up with the name by out of curiosity?
That's a good question because it actually correlates to the name of the son of my co-founder. So Laurie and I met a little over
Mm-hmm.
20 years ago doing the hospitality industry school in The Hague. We
Mm-hmm.
always stayed in contact, but we explored different careers within multinationals.
Mm-hmm.
And her second born name is Vigo. And Vigo had a severe anaphylactic, so that's like the most severe allergic reaction you can get uh,
Mm-hmm.
after eating just a small piece of egg. And we tried to incorporate his name into our company names. And
Ah.
of course, we are actually, our mission is to prevent food allergy in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
that's starting with all the minis. So all the little babies is our core business.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we call our company Vini Mini.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. Um, Maybe also for context, it's good to explain a bit about food allergies and especially how they come into existence and
Yeah.
how prevalent they are.
Yes, it was for me also gigantic surprise actually that one out of four kids who go to school have a food
Mm-hmm.
allergy. And this number has doubled over the last 10 years. And actually, if we don't stop this rising trend, the
Mm-hmm.
estimations are that by 2050, half of the population, even more than half of the population, is developing a food allergy. And of course, like that's painful for all the kids and their parents that go through this in their day-to-day life. But
Mm-hmm.
it's also a big burden on healthcare, and
Mm-hmm.
it enables us to get to the transition of a more sustainable food. So if you want to go and have all meat substitutes, it actually is a challenge because if you can't eat the majority of the allergens like soy and legume and egg, then
Mm-hmm.
you have a huge challenge in changing your diet. So there were multiple angles where we thought, okay, we need to stop the rising trend of food allergies to
Yeah.
also make a bigger impact on other stuff.
Yeah. So, what is the reason why this? I mean, I was a bit when we spoke before. You told me about the 1 in 4 number rising to 1 in every 2 children having a food allergy, and I was like you, I was shocked.
Yeah.
But what is reason behind that?
There's a lot of scientific studies being done,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of them are pointing out towards the changing of the climate,
Mm-hmm.
microplastics, changing of the ozone layer, the majority of antibiotics which we use as small kids. And one of the fascinating things which they found out was that eczema is actually the main cause of developing a food allergy. And a lot of people are having more eczema because we are tend to live very clean these days. We wash multiple times with soap. We are spending the majority of our days inside with climate controls. And that's also a reason why there's more eczema. And
Mm-hmm.
eczema is actually, you have a problem because your skin is cracked and it's
Yeah.
dry. So everything which is flying around, like allergens, are able to get in through the skin. And that's actually the wrong way it should enter your body.
Mm-hmm.
You should eat it, and then it goes through the normal route, and then you will not develop a food allergy. So there's also
Okay.
luckily a good part in this story, which is the preventive part. But the bad part is there are a lot of babies actually currently having eczema, which is one of the big, also reasons why there is more food allergy in the world. And of course, I think if we look back, really back in the days,
Mm-hmm.
it was not that common in the Netherlands to eat, for example, cashew nuts or soy, whilst
Mm-hmm.
now it's kind of normal. So we also get
Yeah.
more in contact with these allergens. So yeah, there are a lot of rationales, but the majority is changing of the climates, changing of our habits, and getting more eczema, and eating more different types of
Or food.
soy foods. Yes.
Mm-hmm. But what I also hear you say is that it's a sort of loop. which
Yes.
sort of it sort of strengthens itself
Yep.
because of the climate. We get rashes and eczema. As a result, the allergens enter the body in the wrong way. So not via the food and not via the digestive system, which is equipped to deal with this, but via the skin. And as a result, we develop allergies. As a result of which we cannot eat all kinds of healthy food that also happens to help to preserve the climate. So
Yes,
it's a
indeed.
sort of it's literally an infinite loop, I would say.
Yes, indeed, indeed, and it's very interesting. Also, if you look at how they found out that actually, because there's a good part in this story,
Hmm.
and the good part is that food allergies can be prevented.
Ah.
And that's by giving allergens early and often.
Hmm.
Early, actually, at the age as of 4 months until, and then often on a weekly basis for a time frame of 6 months. So there is a
Okay.
good part because scientific studies has been shown that 80% of these food allergies actually can be prevented.
Hmm.
But what I would like to mention is the relevance was actually because we were avoiding having those allergens into our babies' diets for
Yeah.
long decades and decades.
Ah.
So, like you were mentioning, this is kind of a loop which we kept on going and kept on going. It was also because we thought, okay, if we wouldn't give those allergens towards a baby, we would minimize the risk of them having a severe allergic reaction. So that would actually
Yeah.
be a good thing if we just expose them on a later age,
Yeah.
which they found out was the opposite because in the UK, especially peanut allergies were on a rise. And when they looked to Israel, they thought, okay, but there are almost no people with peanut allergies. And they found out that they were actually giving peanuts towards little babies in Israel, whilst in the UK, they were definitely trying to evolve. So luckily, they changed all kind of guidelines, especially here in the Netherlands, but also in the US of A,
Uh-huh.
where exposure is actually now the guideline of all healthcare professionals. But we've kept it ongoing for quite a long time, and that's also kept the rising trend for the last decade because we were not giving those allergens towards kids, whilst actually we should have done it to prevent food allergies from happening.
So, out of curiosity, and I don't know if you know the answer or if it has been investigated at all, but you see that trend topping off. So you see food allergies on the rise, in part because we were avoiding uh, the giving young children those foods.
Yeah,
Now that we started to give young children those foods to prevent the allergies, like I would say it's something like the COVID shots we get
yeah,
or we got. Actually, we got a little bit of the virus inside us to make sure that we can deal with the
yeah,
body is able to deal with it.
yeah.
But do you also see the number of food allergies then topping off?
Insufficient. I mean, I would be very happy to say that the numbers were actually on a decline. But currently, what we see is that it's a huge challenge for parents to
Mm.
give a certain dosage.
Yeah.
So how does it work in the human body? You have to give a certain doses
Hmm.
for your immune system to recognize the allergen, and
Yeah.
that doses should be on a certain level but should also be on a certain frequency.
Yeah.
And what we experienced, and also what we experience if we talk to dietitians and talk to other healthcare professionals, and even if we just talk to regular moms and dads,
Hmm.
is that it's a challenge to have a certain high dosage, which is a quite big volume of peanuts or nuts, which you
Hmm.
should give towards a baby who is just like 6 months old. And
Hmm.
if you just give a little bit of that allergen throughout that journey, you could actually enhance getting a food allergy. So you triggered it, but not enough. So we thought of how do we also support in the information way towards parents
Hmm.
in giving them the solution and telling them that they should start giving those allergens early and often, but also provide a product which enables them to give such a high doses in an easy, healthy, and safe way.
Yeah.
So, because you have to give the proteins. So, what we did is we tried to grasp as much as high quality proteins, and that
Hmm.
is just lowers the amount of what you should give towards your infant. So, it makes it parents enable themselves to actually give the right dosage towards their child.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe also for context, please explain what high quality proteins are.
So if you look at all different types of foods, it doesn't really matter what kind of foods, they all contain proteins. And the
Hmm.
proteins are actually the things you need to have to build resistance
Yeah.
in this type. So we try to extract the proteins and make sure that the rest, which is, well, less needed in this traject of preventing a food allergy, we
Hmm.
leave them out because that enables them to give like a smaller portion, which is doable for a baby to eat. So to give an example, you have to give 3 tablespoons of peanut butter, which you
Hmm.
steer through approximately 200 of grams of baby foods. That can be either carrots or banana or broccoli or whatever. But then you have to give
Hmm.
really a big portion towards your little one. And
Yeah.
if we have powders, and it's just like one scoop of powders, which enables to steer easily through just a few spoons of, again, carrots, broccolis, bananas.
Yeah. It's easy to mix.
Which, yeah, and then it's just like you just give a small 3 bites instead of 15 bites, which is really a challenge if you have like a really small kid. And
Hmm.
of course, there are kids who eat fantastically, but the majority has a huge challenge of just eating a lot.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So I want to go back a bit to when do you start giving your child this type of food? That's question one. And question two, on the back of that, how do you deal with that as a parent if you have an allergy?
Yeah. So within the Netherlands, there is a guideline which deviates between two types of children. Kids who have eczema have a higher chance of developing a food allergy, and
Hmm.
also children who have moms, dads, brothers, or sisters who have a food allergy have a higher chance of developing a food allergy.
Yeah. Is
So
it sort of
these,
genetically?
yes, indeed.
Ah.
So these kids need to start as early as possible to get those allergens via the digestional system.
Hmm.
So the recommendation from healthcare professionals is to start as of 4 months years old. So 4 months old is actually the moment when you start weaning, and when a baby is able to eat some kinds of solids, then you should start adding those allergens as early as possible. The majority of the children, luckily, don't have eczema or don't have any relatives who have a food allergy, and they
Hmm.
can start later. So they can start as of the age of 6 months, but before the age of 8 months. So let's say the biggest part of our population within the Netherlands is starting before the age of 8 months. But the kids who have a higher risk need to start before the age of 6 months.
Yeah. And how long does it take after that?
Well, luckily, it is just a time frame of 6 months where you can really train the immune system. But you have to give it on a weekly basis. But then after 6 months, you've done everything which is in your hands to prevent a food allergy.
So basically, I would be giving this in the, let's say, the second half of the first year.
Yes, from 6 till 12 months year old. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I'm done. Okay. So then it's sort of really like, yeah. It's a sort of like an influenza or shot or what these injections that children get anyway.
Yeah.
But then in a well, you don't need to go to the doctor for. Well, that's a question. Do you actually need a prescription
No.
to get this?
No, because it's a
Ah,
food
okay.
supplement. So it is 100% prevention.
Yeah.
So if you are lucky, well, I think the majority would say that they were lucky to get a child, and it is born healthy. The
Mm-hmm.
recommendation of the healthcare professionals is to give vitamin D and vitamin K. It
Mm-hmm.
is also prevention. It helps to prevent which the baby is unable to take sufficiently out of sunlight or out of foods, or and this
Mm-hmm.
is the same. So it's for all babies born, which are 5 million in Europe,
Mm-hmm.
but all babies need to do this as prevention for a time
Mm-hmm.
frame, let's say between 6 months and 12 months year old, on a weekly basis, because that's the time, yeah, moment in time where they could make sure that the immune system is triggered enough to not develop a food allergy on a later age.
Yeah.
Because you're not born with a food allergy, you develop a food allergy throughout your life.
Yeah.
And within food allergies, it's actually within the first time frame, let's say, yeah, so in that time frame of that year that you would develop a food allergy.
Okay. So I was also wondering, because this is a supplement.
Yep.
How do you ensure that people don't, or that children don't get too little or too much of it?
A very good question. So, what we did based on the advice of healthcare professionals is that you would start in small steps. So,
Mm-hmm.
small increasing dosages for the
Mm-hmm.
kids who don't have a higher risk. It's actually in 3 steps. But kids who
Mm-hmm.
have a higher risk of developing a food allergy, they're in
Mm-hmm.
6 or in 7 steps. So, that means that what we did is we wait and dosed the right amount for you based on the scientific literature.
Mm-hmm.
So that enables you to start with a really, really small doses to see how your kid is reacting towards the allergen, for example, peanut.
Uh-huh.
And if you don't have a reaction within the first hour, you can go into your second step. And then you can see with a little increasing dosage of peanuts if your kid is also able to take an increasing dosage until you end in towards the last step, which is the doses you should have on a weekly basis. So we measure them throughout the journey for you, especially to see if you're able to get to the high dose, which you should have on a weekly basis. And
Uh-huh.
the weekly basis is actually a scoop, which enables you to get the right amount throughout the 6 months where you should have that. So we are providing parents to have,
Mm-hmm.
based on the guidelines and based on the scientific literature, the right dosage at the right time.
Okay. I want to switch gears a bit because we're talking about children,
Yep.
uh, which in your case means that you have to educate parents and would-be parents about this. And I was wondering how you go about that. How do you reach these young parents?
I think that's a very relevant question, and that's something which we already tried doing without having a product to support parents.
Mm-hmm.
So we tried visiting, for example, the 9 month fair, which is kind of big. There are like 40,000 of pregnant women going to the 9 month fair in Rai in Amsterdam,
Mm-hmm.
but we try to provide them giving the right information. And luckily, it's not us as a company, which the majority wasn't aware of that we existed, but it's also the healthcare professionals. So it's within, if you go to a centrum, for example, and you Google, then fooding centrum will definitely advise parents on giving those allergens and how much they should have, etc., etc. So it's not only a
Mm-hmm.
fooding centrum, but it's also, and again, this is the Netherlands, but it's also within different countries. For example, het consultatiebureau. So the
Mm-hmm.
consultatiebureau is also advising parents. There's a certain time frame when you can start weaning. If you start weaning, you should also start giving peanut and egg, and how you should introduce those with a scheme.
Hmm.
So it is not us as a company only advising mums and dads throughout social media or throughout fairs or throughout magazines, but it's also really a big part of healthcare professionals at the moment when it's relevant. So if you have a
Yeah.
baby and you, I mean, if you're pregnant, it's all about pregnancy and giving birth. And if you gave birth, it's all about breastfeeding. You're not really thinking about what you should do in 6 months time frame because you're so occupied with all the things you're, well, should do at that moment. So it's really also having the healthcare professional being there at the moment that it's relevant between, let's
Hmm.
say, the 4 and the 8 months, who is also guiding them based on the guidelines within the Netherlands. So it's a bit of twofold where, as a company, we would do everything to give that information throughout podcasts,
Hmm.
fairs, but also especially the healthcare professional who has a non-commercial background, but the authority to tell them
Yeah,
when.
this is important.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I want just out of curiosity. So on the food part of this, does it help if mothers especially eat those foods while being pregnant?
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I can't say very hard yes or no because we're actually looking over the shoulder of this scientific research which they're currently doing. So it's
Uh huh.
really
Oh,
interesting to see. So we've been talking about us as a company focusing on preventing food allergy, but if you look at the core mission of our company, Vini Mini, it's actually preventive healthcare in the first 1,000 days.
yeah.
And maybe I need to explain a bit on what are the first 1,000 days, because the first 1,000 days actually start at the moment you want to become pregnant until your baby has.
So before conception.
Even preconception is actually also a lot of things you can do on the preventive part. Yes. But that's also where you were focusing on, okay, what should and shouldn't I eat during pregnancy? But we're also
Mm-hmm.
looking in scientific studies in what if I breastfeed and if I'm eating cashew nuts and I'm breastfeeding my
Mm-hmm.
baby, would it have a positive or negative impact? Currently, what we know and what we see is that the infant has to eat the allergens themselves. So it has to go through the digestional system of the baby itself. But
Mm-hmm.
there is so much currently unknown. Yeah, we are very anxious to dive into all the things you can do in the preventive healthcare. So also looking at moms during pregnancies, but also looking at lactating women, and
Mm-hmm.
also looking at what we can even do after this stage of 1 year old, because currently we're focusing on the 6 to 1 years old.
Okay. So let's say in 5 years time, where is the company then? It's preventative healthcare, so not just the allergy part, but what else do you cover? Do you
Well,
want to cover?
it would be fantastic if we can. So we're looking into it, making a very positive impact in preventing babies of getting eczema through the during the pregnancy. So what we can do with supplements during the pregnancy to prevent eczema for babies on a later age. So that will be
Mm-hmm.
one. We are looking into, because there's a huge correlation within asthma, food allergies, and eczema. So, but asthma is approximately at the age of 6 where you found out that kids have eczema. But we are
Mm-hmm.
trying to see if we have a positive impact on preventing eczema, preventing food allergies. Could we also have a positive impact in preventing asthma? We are very curious and very going into the direction if we are able to prevent food allergies. Can we also prevent allergies like hay fever?
Mm-hmm.
That's going through the nose, so that's like a different
Yeah.
different way. But I mean, does it, if it might work the same by giving small dosages at a certain age, could we then also prevent that part? So
Yeah.
there is a fantastic landscape to still discover in this entire path relating to eczema, asthma, hay fever, and other types of food allergies.
Okay, and would that then also be via supplements?
Well, we also have a food product, so it would
Mm.
be quite stupid to say that it would only be supplements. Let's say that we would do anything in services,
Mm-hmm.
food supplements, and foods. So that's like our core business. So we would like to
Mm-hmm.
provide services and information, and
Mm-hmm.
food supplements slash foods. It's like food as a medicine, which is
Yeah,
really interesting if you look at the preventive part. So there's a lot of things which you can do with foods in the preventive healthcare.
absolutely. So where can people already buy and find your product now?
Yes, yes. We started in developing a product only to prevent a peanut allergy because peanut
Mm-hmm.
allergies are, yeah, if you have them, you can't get rid of them. You don't
Yeah,
overcome them, and they're quite severe. And
yeah.
when people were buying our products online in our own web shop, we found out that there was a lot of request actually also for egg, but also for other nuts. So we
Mm-hmm.
developed also our products, so our powders, but then we measured them and dosed them and packed them for you for
Mm-hmm.
hazelnut, cashew nut, walnut. And we are now actually, like I was mentioning, we are working really hard to also have cashew, to also have pistachio, almond, all these kind of nuts, which is able to prevent throughout this journey.
Mm-hmm.
So you can buy them in our web shop, but we collaborate with wholesalers. So there are
Mm-hmm.
more online players who sell our products, and even there are some stores who where you can just walk in and see our products on shelf and buy them.
Oh, like.
Like some pharmacies, some DA, some online ATOS stores, but it's not like that all ATOS stores or all DA's, or but also Bol, the online drogist, plein.nl. So these are like partners we collaborate with to make sure that
Okay.
people can buy, find information about our products.
Okay. And out of curiosity, you put the product together yourself, but is it also the powders that you sell? Do you also create them, or is this something you buy off the shelf from a third party?
Yeah, so what we it was actually we were kind of scared that people would think, okay, Laurie and Jozien, who are not doctors, who don't have a food technology background, they would develop
Uh huh.
something in their kitchen themselves and would sell it. Okay, it's infant
Uh huh.
nutrition, so legislation is really tough, which is a fair
Yeah.
deal. So we're compliant to infant nutrition and food supplements, so all that legislation, which is really a challenge to find really good partners. So we have
Yeah.
co-packers, we our legislation, but also we aim to get high quality products. So we work together with all different types of specialists to make sure that we have it available for moms and dads. But in our
Mm-hmm.
advisory board, we have the dietitians, we have the food technologies, we have the pediatricians. So
Mm-hmm.
we collaborate with Wageningen University, for example. And I think the cherry on the cake for me is that we sell our products to a lot of hospitals in the Netherlands, which they use in
Ah.
their provocation tests, so in their so-called PINDA polies. So
Yeah.
if a kid has a reaction, or an adult, could even be an adult, towards a certain allergy, they use our products in the hospitals to test at which kind of level and dose you respond. So for me, the proof of the pudding is that the healthcare professionals are really collaborating with us and using our products in the hospitals. That would not be the case if we weren't best in class in our product quality.
I want to wrap up. Uh, I have an arrangement with Jacqueline van den Ende, one of my previous guests and co-founder of Carbon Equity,
Yeah.
uh, to make this podcast obsolete in about 8 years from now. And I was wondering what your expert advice would be to achieve this.
Ooh, I think it's especially today. It's really an interesting day if you look at what's happening in the world and looking to financials and how people invest their monies.
Hmm.
Today is a very relevant day to ask this question. And I think if we change and focus into, in our case, in prevention
Hmm.
instead of a lot of things is focusing on curing.
Yeah.
And if we start investing our money into prevention,
Hmm.
then a lot of these things would be obsolete.
Absolutely. And what would prevention in terms of diversity in tech look like
Well, I
for
think
you?
Well, personally, it's something which is if you look in the Netherlands, we are kind of fighting at the moment that we have the pain, right? So if we have a
Mm.
pain, we go search the internet, we go ask a doctor, we go ask our best friend.
Yeah.
And in case of diversity, it is that we ask the question when we already have the pain. So when we already have look in our companies to see, hey, we only have a board which is full of men, or oh, we don't even have people with a different gender
Mm.
in our sales teams,
Mm.
or we only invest in people who look like us, and that is actually a male who is white. So for
Mm.
me, it's not looking in to when we have a problem and we want to fix the problem, but it's actually before you start having the problem. So start in generously, openly be interested in not something which is known or common to you. Start
Mm.
focusing on prevention. So before we have a top management without women, before we have start looking in finding women at a different level who can grow into start having childcare, for example, in your company. Start having all different types of things which you can do in a company to enable, for example, female to grow to the top, or which enables you to invest in women who might not have the next unicorn, but really change the world because they have a decent business model.
So start in the maybe also start in part in the design phase.
It's already starting the design phase, definitely.
Yeah.
It's the same in what we do. We start in when the microbiome is building the immune system. We already start building it at the moment it's being built, and we are not solving a problem when we see that it's not in place or not right or incorrect.
Sounds like a great place to wrap. Josien, thanks very much for the interview. I really
Yes.
enjoyed our conversation. If people want to learn more about Vini Mini and about you, where would you like to send them?
So I would definitely recommend them to go to our website, which is finimini.nl.
Hmm.
But I would also invite people just to send us an email or send me an email, because I think if you have questions or if you have ideas how we can improve our business, or if you want to partner, we're always
Hmm.
open to have a chat. And I'm also a mom and I'm also a human being.
Hmm.
And I have a huge passion, so we're also very open to learn, but also teach if we have the possibility to teach others how to prevent a food allergy.
Okay. And we'll include those links in the show notes. So
Definitely.
once again, Josien, thanks very much for the chat. Really enjoyed it.
Same
Listeners,
here.
thank you very much for listening, and hope to see you in the next episode. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to episode 65 of Women Disrupting Tech with Jozien Boersma on how we can break the food allergy cycle with Vini Mini. Jozien and I hope that you've enjoyed our conversation as much as we did. And if you'd like to learn more about Jozien or Vini Mini, feel free to connect with her via the links in the show notes. In the show notes, we've also included links to some of the studies that we discussed in this episode. And as usual, you can find the show notes at womendisruptingtech.blog. On the same website, you can also become a member of the Women Disrupting Tech community. Members get early access to new episodes, and in the weekly newsletter, I'll share with you what I learned from each of the episodes. Plus, you'll be the first to hear when new blog posts about women who built the internet come online. So check out the show notes for a link. When you're looking for a role model to inspire your own hero's journey in tech, I invite you to check out one of the other episodes of this podcast on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And if you're a regular listener, please give the show a rating or a review because that way you help other people discover the podcast. If you're a male ally and you want to help the women disrupting tech make this podcast obsolete by the end of 2032, there's a simple thing you can do. Please share the podcast with friends, family, and coworkers because this way you give my guests a platform they need to make it happen. Finally, if you want to connect with me, you can reach me via dirkjan at womendisruptingtech.blog or you can send me a DM on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, simply type in my name and you'll find me. With that, I wish you a wonderful day. I hope to see you in the next episode, and until then, keep being awesome.